Hey everybody, Erica here. We are continuing our interviews with local residents who are running for local positions this November. Today I'm talking to Emily Talago, who is running for City Commission. Emily, I will just invite you to get started and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Erica, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I first came out to Bozeman in 2008
Mhm.
as an undergrad researcher. Actually, they had a program at MSU. So it's the first time I fell in love with the place. And then I came out here after grad school for keeps in 2010. Worked in managed a research lab up at MSU for a bit, and then uh, essentially took a break. I'm a third generation nurse or fourth generation nurserywoman. My
Mhm.
dad's third generation. And so I was taking a break in between grants, and this thing came up for horticulture background wanted, kind of those like Indeed job things.
Yeah,
And it was for Cashman Nursery, actually. And so I was like,
very
oh, this
cool.
would be perfect. Like, this would, just give me a break with this. Needless to say, this is my 10th season at Cashman Nursery. So I never went back to the lab.
Awesome.
But I also, so I do that, do their seminar series, a lot of their marketing. And then I also do the Montana Nursery Landscape Association is like the industry group. So I do project management and grant applications with them. So definitely have, private sector, public sector, a bunch of
Sure.
different places. And then of course I've been participating in civic stuff with the city for over a decade too. So
What would you say? What motivated you to run for the City Commission this year?
oh, well, I think because people asked me to. But yeah,
Fair.
so I did run in 2021. And it was a grassroots campaign. I'm really proud of how many votes I got. I mean, we didn't spend over $500. It was kind of a thing, but I really cut my teeth with the neighborhoods program. So for
Yeah.
the Midtown Neighborhood Association, and being a leader with that for a while, and then chairing the Inner Neighborhood Council.
Mhm.
So it's just been a really, really like rewarding experience to learn about all these different things, build these relationships, um, and yeah, civic duty was something I was just kind of raised with as well.
Yeah.
That you where you can participate and give back, like you have a responsibility to, and
Sure.
so yeah, and I have been pretty good at some of the stuff. So I know my way around the system really well at this point, having put so many years in, not just with neighborhoods, but on the urban renewal board before it was kind of deleted. um, so we could chat about that later if you like.
Yeah, sure.
But
Well, anybody that puts themselves out there is so brave, and it's more important now, I think, than ever to be involved locally. And I think
yeah,
finally people are waking up to that it's not just about national news, federal law. Like, we can really make a difference in our community. So good luck to you, and I think it's wonderful that people are brave enough to put themselves out there. And so if you're elected, what would be your top priorities, if you've got two or three that you would list?
sure. So I think you know uh, it is an elephant, right? Maybe not in this room, but but in our town. Um, so yeah, growing pains, right? I mean,
Yeah,
this place has grown very, very quickly.
so fast.
And that has been destabilizing on a couple different fronts. And so the idea of like, having growth that works for Bozeman,
Mhm.
recalibrating all of our systems to the new reality that we have right now.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Essential services, right? I mean, these are critical things that we have to like reevaluate and recalibrate so that we can maintain high quality level of service.
Yeah.
So, a couple ideas on how we can make improvements on that front. So the other piece of it is, like housing as, which is kind of an extension of growth too.
Yeah.
Housing is like part of the bigger picture. that if we do this thing, we get tunnel vision just on housing, we run the risk of like neglecting all these other things that are important.
Sure.
Right. I mean, there's jobs, there's transportation, there's families, there's childcare, there's um, and so we have to look at it as a piece of a comprehensive thing.
Yeah.
And so kind of like zooming out a bit on the housing question. But then also, I mean, there's a couple other ones that maybe they would be subcategories, if you will.
Yeah, we'll dive into a few of those
Yeah,
things that
yeah,
you
we can get
mentioned.
this.
I promise.
I will say I do get, I'm a person who like works with complex systems a lot, whether it was like as a, research scientist or all the moving parts of like, a nursery and garden center. And so like nuance is important, but I have recognized that like for the purposes of campaigning, that it's tough because nuance is very, very important. And yet we don't have hours and hours and hours and hours to unpack everything with everyone. But again, my work with the neighborhood council and the neighborhoods program has been really formative in that over the last year, as I chaired for the last year, and what we were trying to do was we looked at how the neighborhood associations were written into the charter and really trying to like bushwhack our way back into functioning how the charter was written and intended, and creating this network where we were able to like we can very quickly just it's not a statistically significant survey or anything like that, but to be able to like take the pulse of something very quickly.
Right.
And so being able to have that kind of two-way communication, because the neighbors were always receiving things from the city. I mean, even some of that stuff we're still trying to,
Yeah.
there's a lot to receive, but also sending information back the other direction,
Right.
kind of like closing that loop of like, okay, we've had this engagement or we've conducted a survey or this, where does it end up? And so really kind of
And you're supposed to have a voice with the city. That's the whole purpose. So uh, it should be a priority to make sure that they're listening to
yeah.
what people have to
Well,
say.
and that's the idea of closing those feedback loops, is
Yeah.
that like and bringing things full circle, because like hearing is one thing, box checking is one thing, and listening is a thing. And so we had to come circle back and be like, yes, we did hear you. And here's how we integrated it into policy or program, or here's how we didn't because we can't. And so that kind of idea of broadening everyone's understanding of like, and we'll probably get into it, but Bozeman has some unique challenges
Yeah.
relative to some other governments and things. I hear great ideas all the time, and I have to like, ground them in, we have a system, how does it work with that, as opposed to like, here's the system we wish we had or that someone else had.
Right.
Like we don't. I'm not saying you can't change the system, right? I mean, like work has to be done in the background to again recalibrate all these systems that like state laws that potentially never contemplated
Right.
what we are dealing with right now, right?
Yeah. That's
So that work
so.
has to be done, but we also have to be like really realistic about what city governments in Montana can and can't do, and like focus our efforts there. So, but I also realized too that I think, working with Cash and Nursery and like landscaping jobs and stuff, it has, I mean, I love my neighbor. I'm, Midtown, like the North 7th Association of Neighbors before we were rebranded as Midtown, we were insane was the acronym. um, but yeah, so everybody like, you have your pocket where, your close neighbors and things, but being able to work on jobs and things throughout the entire of the county really, and then but the city in particular has put me in lots of different neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Which is really neat because, I think sometimes we can have this very sort of siloed perspective of, I'm just registering what's happening right outside my front door or in my backyard, versus being like, oh, no, the city is much bigger and there's lots of neighborhoods and there's lots of businesses and there's lots of different groups. And so, getting those connections made with people, I think is really important. Like, because we can't, 5 people sitting around a dais, and with city staff on Tuesday night, like that cannot be the only place that we are trying to solve problems.
Yeah.
Like
That,
it won't work,
no.
I know the study commission is working on, some restructuring, but you can restructure it however you want. If you're not connected constituents and you're not
Yep.
in two-way conversation, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and we're trying to get some updates on that too. And there are so many neighborhoods yet to be established, like with the growth
Oh
and how
yeah.
far we've expanded. Um, that that has to be a priority for these folks because neighborhoods are great. That's what they're intended to be. They've got
Oh, yeah.
character and they unique and wonderful and you know your neighbors and it's important that you have I don't know, just that connection to your little
Relationship.
community within a
Yeah.
big community that's
Yeah.
growing so darn quickly that it's almost impossible to think about how we can make it work. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
I'll move into housing a little bit. So, what role do you believe the local government should have in creation of affordable housing?
Affordable housing.
Yeah,
Oh boy, that's
yeah. Do
tough.
you think it's the city's the local government's job to create affordable housing? And
We have limited,
you're allowed
very
to,
limited. Well, and
yeah.
I was saying, I mean, it's an interesting question because, like, in theory, like I'll just say full stop. Like I wholeheartedly support allowing people to meet their needs as they change organically.
Mhm.
I think that sometimes, we can get stuck on how things look and
Yeah,
not how things function, and how
right.
things function, like people's needs change over time, and a community's needs change over time, and we should be able to like have that, that space in there.
Mhm.
So like I'm always going to support. It's like if somebody needs to do an addition because their mother-in-law is moving in, like we have to have a pathway forward to allow for that, right?
Yeah,
Somebody needs to add a bedroom, because they've got another little one on the way. Like we
sure.
have to be like people need to be able to do these things to meet their needs. Um, you know, there's so many different terms. There's affordability, there's attainable or affordable, there's attainable, there's workforce, and all these have like very different metrics. There's low income,
Yeah,
there's transitional, there's all different types of housing. And I'll be honest, I am personally concerned that like the line has gotten a little blurred, a
yeah,
little, maybe more like a lot, between like this kind of like low income housing, um, and workforce housing.
right. Yeah,
um
there's
Affordable housing,
so many different little avenues that,
it's an economic problem that if you
yeah,
look at, and yeah, just because I've been involved with these things, like, we get these market reports done, every few quarters. We contract, and when I say we, I mean the city, the taxpayers pay for the city to have
yeah,
done. But yeah, like you look at our economic profile, right? And like, so accommodations just unseated retail for our top sector, right? By number of jobs and growing. So, and accommodations is hotels and restaurants. And
mhm,
so that's the top, right? That's most jobs. And then we have retail, right? And then we have construction, which a lot of the construction is more of is building the more accommodations. And so when we look at where those wages are in that big top heavy section, they're generally not high paying jobs.
no,
And so it's really hard for a lot of our workforce to compete for housing, in a market that is highly desirable. I mean, this place, I mean, during COVID, I mean, this is in a like portfolios with like, places like Jackson and,
yeah,
San Luis Obispo, or, upstate, or, outside of Long Island. It's wild, what we see now. Like COVID was this blip,
yeah, yeah.
of insanity. We
Totally.
do see things kind of like, oh, like cooling a little bit, but I do think like, we have to approach this like from a, we have very limited tools with which
Mhm.
to preserve affordable housing or create affordable housing. low-income housing tax credit, that is one tool, and like we got to get the people who know how to do that really, really well and have them do that. But we also like need to also work on providing more opportunity for better paying jobs. And so
Yeah.
it's like when we say affordable housing, it's like, well, affordable to who?
Well, yeah,
Who
and
are we
somebody
trying to
mentioned in
house? Yeah.
one of the interviews that I thought was really interesting is that available does not equal affordable. And I thought that that was a very interesting statement because our unoccupancy rate is what, like, I'm not sure what it is today. In the last month, it's over 12%. And I have to believe that number is going to continue to grow. And you just wonder how is that all going to shake out? And
Um,
it's
I mean, I imagine it will probably get absorbed. That's just kind of what happens. Either, pricing has come down. Like that's just like a market phenomenon. Now, has it come down to like be a, like
enough.
30%
Yeah.
of someone?
Yeah.
And I mean, also too, like Bozeman I mean, I didn't grow up here, but I've been here, for a hot second, and like the joke used to be you get paid in scenery. So like this has always been a cost burden area to live, and people made that trade-off because it was
Yeah.
really high quality of life. So I
Yeah,
think
that's a
that
good
like
point.
sometimes at like 30%, I'm like, who the heck is paying 30%? Nobody's paying there. I know that's supposed to be like this healthy target, but like uh, I
Yeah.
don't know how many people are hitting it. So like context is really important.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw out a statistic. So apartment construction has outpaced single family homes by nearly 4 to 1 since 2018. So even before COVID, and some of our city leaders are calling single family zoning outdated or a relic of the past. Do you support preserving single family zoning, or do you believe that Bozeman should phase it out,
So if we're
and
talking
why?
about single family zoning, as in the only thing that you can build is a single home with a single set of utilities, I think that does get kind of jammed up in that idea of like allowing people to meet their needs organically.
Hmm.
Like the city needs to answer some like really important questions first, like can we provide water, sewer capacity? Can the fire department like respond in time?
Right.
Do we have enough police to respond to a call if someone needs help? Like, so these like very basic things, like stormwater infrastructure, right?
Yep.
Like basic things first, right? And that kind of lets you know, like, well, what's the carrying capacity there? Um, so zoning's interesting because like if we didn't have single family, so like let's say something's R4, right?
Mhm.
Does not mean that the only thing that would be built is a high density multifamily like apartment complex. There's actually quite a few like duplexes and single family homes in R4. So like I don't know, when we talk about it being like a relic of the past, I kind of, my brain goes to like almost like a relic of the county, because the constraint there is you have a septic system and a well, so
Mhm.
like, you can't put a whole lot of units on. um so I don't know, but because we have places that have high zoning, but if you have covenants on the subdivision, I mean, some the covenants supersede any of the zoning stuff. So like if the product of a new neighborhood, for example, is marketed as single family homes for families, right, or duplexes for young families,
Uh,
and that's what gets built. I mean, there's nothing saying that there's not covenants there that says like, ergo you cannot drop a 6 story 100 unit apartment in the middle of
right.
the neighborhood. So there's some other, so I don't know, a relic of the past. I think it has its place for sure. But from the city's perspective, like I'm not as worried about having higher zoning designations, but with serious caveat, like there's has to be guardrails. Living
Sure.
in Midtown, there has to be guardrails. So
Yeah, you're right in the middle there, and it's interesting to see what will happen. So we'll move into
Yeah,
the
and I
budget.
I
Oh,
think
go ahead.
oh, well, yeah, it's a question like, what is the role of zoning and how does it function? Zoning doesn't like necessitate a product type. Now, there's some stuff going on with the draft that does give me concern that like they're putting minimums in for certain things that like I heard this for an example, and I mean, I know this is evolving as over time, but like if someone had a single family home that God forbid burned down,
Hmm.
that like depending on its new zoning designation, like RB or RC or whatever, they could not rebuild it without it being like a minimum number of units.
Yeah,
That's a problem.
yeah, that's a huge. Yeah,
That
I
that's
think so.
you know what I mean? So like I don't, the fact that we would put minimums on things but not maximums seems like there's this fear about caps or maximum dwelling units per acre, for example, an objective criteria that we could do,
Yeah,
that nobody's talking about maximums. It's like it's okay to have guardrails and it's okay to say no to some things.
yeah, 100%.
It's like, I mean, I last I checked, healthy boundaries.
That's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah.
That's funny. So budget and economy, this is our next section. How would you ensure the city's long-term fiscal health, particularly in funding infrastructure and services, without overburdening the taxpayers? I know the taxpayers, we're all taxpayers. Man, people are just getting hammered.
Hammered.
How do we,
It's tough.
yeah.
So, and that's I kind of spoke about that a little bit in the beginning of like
Mhm.
this. We have a system in place that is really, I don't know if it just never contemplated, this the scenario we have right now. But what we do have is that we have a lot of people. So some are what's our most expensive infrastructure? I mean, at schools, and then we have road, or we have the police department. That's a big chunk, and then we have streets and roads. I mean, those are crazy expensive. And so people who are using the schools are paying taxes to schools, right? So
Mhm.
check. But when it comes to things like roads or emergency services, we have a lot of people using those services and infrastructure that we have no way of collecting revenue on any.
Mhm.
And it's gotten to a point where we look at places like Big Sky or West Yellowstone, like they have a resort tax. Our population's too high, right? And it's like,
Uh-huh.
doesn't the same logic apply regardless of your population? And so, even something like North Seventh, I mean, I think we got 7 dispensaries on there now.
Wow.
It's not great, but it all that 20% goes to the state. But yet, you know what I mean? All, the like joint tubes and all that other stuff are like, you know what I mean? We're picking those up. And so it's not staying here. And so I think, the community, as I've watched things go down, it became clear to me that like there is a lack of understanding of how limited the revenue stream is here. We
Mhm.
have like property tax, right? I mean, that's how we get stuff done. And um, it's capped. We can only increase it by half the rate of inflation.
Mhm.
So it puts us in the situation where we're almost kind of like dependent on these like windfalls of new taxable value and growing. But like after we've got that first year, like now it's that half the rate of inflation, half the rate of inflation, half the rate. So we have to, like we have to come up with a plan to go to the state legislature and have a candid conversation about this and come up with a solution. I don't know if a sales tax is the right tool or not. I know that there's pros and cons to it, but in chatting with a lot of different people, the sentiment has shifted, at least in my
Mhm.
experience. Always willing to hear more, always willing to learn more, right? Like, but a sales tax that like has to be tied to relief for property tax. Like you can't do
Yeah.
both. You can't be like, oh,
Yeah.
your property tax is like choking, and now we're gonna do a sales tax too. No, no.
Yeah. It's
But like,
interesting. I just got a text. Sorry to interrupt. I just got a text in the last week. There was like a research poll.
oh, okay,
I'll
yeah,
fill them out, and it was all about property taxes, sales tax, and it just kind of had all these scenarios. And
Mhm.
I was like, oh, okay, so here we go. This is the conversation that's happening. But you're right. If there is a sales tax, that's gonna hurt, because I grew up in a state where there was one.
Yeah.
Um, which I'm 19 years old. You don't know the difference, and now that I'm much older, and 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 thinking about things in those terms, it's interesting to think about what would really make sense, so long as that it's going to actually help and not hinder uh the, the whole idea of it to begin with. Like, we've got to
Mhm.
do something that is going to give folks a break. And
Yeah,
so,
and I
what does
think that
that look like?
it's just that big, and like I said, I mean, there are other opportunities too, but I tend to think it's like, the closer we can get to like a user pays kind of
Yeah,
system, that like we have a lot of heavy, I mean, I don't think we can like make our roads into toll roads. I'm pretty sure that's not going to fly, but it's just this kind of idea that like, well, where does the revenue come from? you know
hmm,
and is it where we have a situation where it's like, okay, we do have so much heavy use that is not from the tax base here, and like that aren't paying into the property taxes. Like, I we have we have to come up with a solution to this.
yeah,
So, but that does mean like coming up with a responsible plan and a responsible budget to say like, oh, we're not going to like, right, like tax you twice now. And because I thought it was, I disagreed with them putting forth the fire and police stuff on the ballot. I think most people assume that like what you're budgeting for should be in your general fund, that like that's your budget, and then you put a discretionary on the ballot. But I think that was tough for a lot of people to see, because it's like everybody's paying a lot.
yeah. But
Why is this being an why is this like a option?
yeah, it should make more sense. It should be more common sensical, if that's even.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so we have to look at those things. I would love to see stuff where it's like, even the cannabis tax, if like a percentage of it can be remit or stay in the community, because we know that like there's some communities that like don't even allow the sale of it, so they're not,
yeah. And
so
I didn't know that until recently, which
yeah.
is interesting. I'll go down that rabbit hole one night when I've got time.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the city funding the tenants' rights to counsel?
um
This is it's a
yeah, I'm a
subject.
solutions
It's
oriented person, and I'll just be straight. So, I think Bozeman needs like leadership that listens, and I do listen. I listen to a lot. Like, I listen to a lot of meetings. I've gone to a lot of meetings, and I reach out to people for like clarifications too. And
Mhm.
one thing that is an outstanding question. Obviously, I'm not a commissioner right now, and so I'm not going to get to vote on their discretionary budget in October, wherever they get those values. But um, my concern was that there is a time and a place for like legal representation, and
Mhm.
I think that there are some like really egregious. I know some egregious things are happening in town. There's a
I have
lot of abuse that's happening.
experienced yeah, firsthand.
It's
Yes, absolutely.
terrible.
Hmm.
And so like we need like a tool for that. But as far as like a substantive claim to prevent eviction, like a lot of the testimony, unfortunately, was that like people were actually in a violation of their lease. And that is not without compassion for why that was happening.
Hmm.
But it was also like, so I don't know that we need to like, bankroll two full-time attorneys to tell you that like, well, you did violate your lease.
Right.
I know there's some other opportunities there, but one thing I did reach out to the union about, and that I asked them because I think something needs to be done, um, was essentially there's a licensing. I mean, if you have three or more properties that you're managing, you have to have a license for that. And that's issued by the state. And I was surprised to look and see that there were not any complaints filed
Hmm.
with the licensing board.
Yeah, that surprises me too.
Yeah, I was. I mean,
Wow.
and who knows? Maybe they are that. Maybe that they are not sympathetic, but like they have like a perfect. You have to. It's like a real estate license. It's the board of realty, I think, actually who issues it.
Mhm.
But like, there's a code of ethics. There's continuing education. There's all these things, and I just couldn't help but think. I was like, well, somebody is giving, the bad actors a license to operate, and if you can do something about that, because it's like, hey, there are expectations, there are standards of how you will conduct business
Yeah,
in the state.
absolutely. And a
And,
contract is a
and so
contract.
there, if you can
Yeah.
get accountability at that point,
Yeah.
my hope would be we could, you know, um, move it from this contentious sort of conversation. There's another thing too. There's another tool called like a rental registry that I had shared an idea with them that like every time a lease gets signed, landlord and a tenant each put $20 in. If you've got 10,000 leases signed, you have a annual operating budget of $400,000 then to hire a mediator, things like that, or emergency rental assistance. So I think
Mm.
there's options, but I'm willing to, I want to continue the conversation and learn more. There's people who know more about this than I do, but I'm the kind of person I'm like, well, what's the most efficient and the shortest route to get our desired outcome?
Yeah. And I think that that's what a lot of folks who, outright oppose it. It's not that anybody's excited about somebody being down and out or falling on hard
No,
times. But it is it empowering folks who are acting in a nefarious way to just break their contract and squat, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'm sure that's, there are people out there who will take advantage of that kind of situation. But again, it just needs to be looked at in a blanket way where there is a responsible and fiscally viable way of preventing just one giant cluster
well,
of
and my brain went to like,
litigation. Yeah.
because what I was talking about was like where there's like this abuse of withholding property or security deposits when they shouldn't,
Mhm.
or yeah, like the eviction prevention is a different, like I do think we should, like, if there's funding available, like, because we do know that the downstream effects of eviction end up costing us,
Mhm.
so like eviction is bad, um but I don't know, like emergency like rental assistance seems, which we do have. I mean, HRDC has that program. We, the city, a lot of city budget goes, in supporting these kinds of services. There's faith-based organizations. There's all kinds,
Mhm.
people to help. Like that should. I never want that to be interpreted as like, that, oh, because I think the health of your community, you look to how you take care of your most vulnerable, and it says a lot.
Mhm.
So, um, but the idea of the bankrolling the attorneys, and again, I'm willing to sit in on a conversation and learn different, but that's just my take, like
Yeah,
where I'm at with
absolutely.
it right now.
So what do you what is your view on the city's belonging in Bozeman DEI plan? Do you believe that this initiative is necessary? And just a second part of that question is, do you think that the amount of taxpayer money that's been spent and continues to be spent is necessary? What do you think about the DEI?
Um, I mean, again, grounding it in the system that we currently have, like we don't have many revenue streams. I
Mhm.
mean, when when that was done, so like the neighborhoods program, essentially is supposed to have a full-time staff person, and that person, kind of put the neighborhoods program on hold, and it was like, there was a conversation about it, but that was going to be what she did full-time then.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was kind of this like, well, because we didn't figure out how to do both, and so one thing is written into our charter, right? That is, there's supposed to be a staff liaison. So it seemed like it was like kind of operating outside of the charter and trying to like meet
Mhm.
the moment in some ways.
Yeah,
Um,
that's well said.
but it like that the belonging Bozeman wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't written into the charter. And so I think if you are a town that like, I don't know, sitting on, cobalt or you know what I mean, and you are just raking it in, right? You could do all kinds of things,
Yeah.
right? You but it is really difficult to do work like that. And I think too that like more than a plan or kind of like performative politics stuff, like I mean, you know, that's a cultural thing. Like
Yeah,
it's how you treat one another. It's recognizing the dignity in everyone.
absolutely.
Like it is something, it's there is the plan, and these things. And but more so than that, it does seem like it should be more like a cultural expectation.
Yeah, it's already built in that we're just nice to everyone, and
Mhm.
I think that's been a consensus really with everybody that I've
And
talked to.
I'm like this thing is like I'm not saying that the like it's not like important work. I just don't think it's in the purview of a local government
Yep.
who has a very narrow revenue stream. And
Hmm.
so
Yeah, exactly. Um, I'm just going to. So
um,
we'll move into community engagement. Do you think that the current mayor and current city commission represent the majority of the voices in our city, of the constituents?
I mean, that's technically the job, but but I imagine you're asking like in practice.
Yeah. Do you think that they
Uh,
are representing everyone, or that they're representing the majority of the voices in our community?
no, I don't.
Fair enough.
And I don't, it's hard to use a broad brush like that
It
because,
is, but it's an
but
important question.
if this is a yes or no,
Yeah, it is.
it's a no right now. And we've seen how this is, and I don't know that it's necessarily, I think people have to keep in context too. We had like massive shifts in leadership. I mean, like we had a
Mm,
city manager that was fired. We had a community development director resign. We've had how many different commissioners, like the turnover.
yeah,
So this has been like some fragmented times.
sure.
So there's some grace, I guess, but I do think it had there's been this sort of disconnect that.
Yeah, I think that's a good word. So how would you improve transparency and accountability at City Hall?
Oh, well, I mean, transparency, like that's all about like disclosure, like,
Mhm,
letting people know why it is that, what is influencing your decision. Like you got to disclose things, right? Accountability. So there's that, um, again, like bringing things full circle.
mhm,
There's some accountability in that where it is like, hey, I'm letting you know that I heard you, and I'm letting you know that like here's why we couldn't incorporate this
mhm,
thing that was like this that's very important to you, or a tough decision that you have to make. So making your findings into the record, making really solid findings and
mhm.
articulating that, and then I mean performance metrics, like accountability. It is
Yeah.
like we have to really make sure that we're measuring like impact and not intent, right? We have so many plans.
Yeah,
I mean, which is great. We have plans, we have policy, we have vision statement stuff, but like, how do we know that we are delivering on those? We really,
absolutely.
and because that is really informative too, of like too many times it's like you can't just keep throwing money at a problem if that sometimes money is not the issue.
Absolutely right.
And so having really good like performance metrics and like an open dialogue to not, to about doing things better. I
I
mean,
like that. I love that you want to see the gap closed, that people know if they shoot off an email, that it's not just going into ether, that somebody's going to answer back and say like, screw you, or yeah, you're right, let's look at it. That people want some results. They want to know that what they're doing has an end. And when we do tasks as humans every day, presumably you want to do your checklist for the day so you can go about your evening and relax. And if there's
Right.
just always this um, gray area where you're just kind of hoping something works out, it creates a lot of anxiety and frustration and anger and worry. And I think a lot of that is unnecessary. So I really like that,
Oh yeah.
um, that you're focused on delivering results and being able to, the performance metrics is very well said.
Oh yeah. I mean, and like that's, I, every other organization, like I am somebody who likes to get things to a place where they're like running really smooth, like
Yeah, me too.
greased
I
ball
try.
bearing smooth, like,
Yes.
oh, it's like it just sings like it's, um, and yeah, so that you can't get there if like there's no reckoning with like we are not meeting our goals, and
All
so
right.
we have to pivot, right? Like
And
so I had, yeah, go
I
ahead.
think people want to see, they just want to see something work too. Like you say, there's ideas and then there's results, and what is working. And we've got a lot of plans from people that aren't necessarily even, they don't know Montana at all, and they're going to be making decisions based on other communities. Well, where? What are those communities where your plans worked?
Yeah,
I'd
and I
like to
bet you they have a
see a
bunch of other taxes
presentation.
too. Yeah,
I'd
like
like
to
a
pay for
recap,
things.
please. And I think it's reasonable to expect that, not just um, not just the idea, but
Well,
when did it work?
and we should look to things too that like, I mean, I don't know about you, like my trash gets picked up like clockwork.
Hmm.
And I turn my faucet on and the water's clean and it comes out, like you do the laundry, like the wastewater goes.
Yeah.
And so like there, I think we should definitely look to the things that are working really well because we might be able to learn, from that like,
Yeah.
and maybe it doesn't scale the same way for something like, community development or something, but like it is, if we can deliver high quality services, essential services like that, and those essential functions throughout the entire of the city equally, like
Hmm.
that frees everybody else up to do the things that we need to do, right? To do our jobs, right? In the private sector, public sector, take care of families, do things like we like, and it is unfortunate because like when it's working really well, you don't really think about it. It's like,
Hmm.
so that's how you know it's fine because it's not, but when it's not, it jams stuff up for everybody and everyone is angry. And so like you have to hear that accountability.
Yeah.
It's okay to say like, so like, we just blew a head gasket or something, like we gotta fix this. So
Hmm.
um
That leads us that this leads us into our next section, which I think makes sense, is public safety and infrastructure. So do you think that the city is currently doing enough to support the police and the fire department? I know we touched on it earlier. Do you think, what do you think? Are we doing enough to
no,
support the city with those services?
no, and I mean doing enough, it's like I mean we know that we are going to have an issue with the fire department because that grant is paying for those positions, but then that will expire, and then what do
Mhm.
you do, right? And again, sometimes it's like we do have to pause and be like, well, is it just like, do you just have to throw more money at this problem and then that will fix it? I mean, it sounds like based on the amount of money that they were asking for in the ballot, it was like, okay, so there's definitely a need for more funding, right?
Right.
But then yeah, like other forms of support, right? That go into that, because if you're understaffed, or I mean, what we ask those guys to do and gals to do, like, is I mean, so I was renting at 7th and Alderson. I was living there with my sister and her boyfriend. I think it was like 2012, and that place burned down. And the fire department, they were amazing. like, I think about this as this like crazy chaotic thing. I mean, they like put
Yeah, that's
over the
terrifying.
top of stuff before
Mhm.
bringing the ceiling down
Oh
to
my
like
gosh.
preserve things, you know, and just like so much compassion. And they were just, I mean, they could get us to laugh about things. And but yeah, it, I think when people are paying their taxes, like there's certain expectations that they have of what that's going to fund.
Mhm.
And it is for, like, if you need help, someone will come.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you know, I don't think that they're um uh, being dramatic or any, like when they have been candid about like what their funding needs are. So we have
Yeah.
to do a better job, and we have to make sure that we're not getting people to a point where they're burning out,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
because
and with the
it makes
growing
sense.
population as exponential as it is, the services sector is going to have to grow commensurate with that. And how does that happen without the tax dollars? So that's going to lead me to a question that everybody's been asked. It's a little touchy on a subject matter, but
Okay.
how do you feel about um, the increase of Bozeman's illegal alien population? Do you think that the city should have a role in that situation? We know it's a big national issue, but we know that there is a growing illegal alien population in Bozeman. So the question is, do you think the city needs to get more involved?
I mean, it's my understanding that they already are,
Hmm.
in the sense that, like, yeah, I mean there's like the stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't see, right? Like, uh, we knew that there were cartel members in town, right?
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, so for this, I'll share with you. So I grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and one of my high school jobs for a couple years, it was actually with their Bureau of Recycling and Solid Waste, but they had a graffiti removal division.
Oh
What was
wow.
so interesting? So my brother and I actually, so he would do the, like, the paint overs and stuff like that, but I had to catalog the stuff and then send it over to the police department because that's how they would map gang
Hmm.
territory. And
Oh
I will
wow.
tell you, it was a little like when that happened here, I was like,
It seems outrageous, right?
man,
And
like I
it.
was like, this is not like, like, it was, but so I think that they're, it's my understanding that they are supportive of the county and the state and DEA and Missouri River Drug Task Force. Like, they're working on some of these things that go hand in hand. I just want to be kind of a little more surgical. Like when you say like illegal alien population,
Mhm.
it's my understanding that like the priority is for people who are violent, like, or threat to, like, acute threat to safety.
Mhm.
That is, and that's been my understanding that that is the primary emphasis, because when, as a commissioner, you take an oath of office,
Mhm.
right? And part of that oath is like to uphold the U.S. Constitution, to uphold the state constitution and the city charter. And part of what's built into that is also due process.
Mhm.
And so there is some like bigger, federal level stuff going on right now of like, well, wait, due process as we understood it previously is now being challenged, because there's a lot of legal immigration. I mean, there's people who have asylum, right? I mean, there's different types of visas and things. And so it's really important to balance it. Like, in due process does still matter. So I have every confidence that our local police force is operating it with integrity and upholding the constitutional rights of due process. So to do more, I mean, we already know that, like, we are we are understaffed and
Yeah.
underfunded. We're not able to give traffic citations, things like that. That's like, there's an expectation in Bozeman, and I think we're going to get there. It's just, and I have some other ideas about that too.
Hopefully. Yeah.
So, because we have like the urban renewal districts,
Mhm.
and they have budgets. And one of the things that potentially been floated before is like remitting some money back into the general fund from those. for kind of like getting that beat cops, where it's like, yeah, it's a perfect thing because we look at where actually the hot spots are for these things, right? Where it's like, well, the downtown urban renewal district, the bar scene, all that. It's like, it might actually make sense to use that budget specifically for beat cops,
Yeah,
or
that's
midtown.
interesting. Yeah.
So it's kind of seeing where we can strike that balance of like, yes, these funds are earmarked for a very specific thing, but we have the ability to remit them back
Mhm.
if, for a specific need.
So last question in that section is, what do you think about Bozeman's water supply? We talked about it very briefly, and the Bozeman Water Adequacy Ballot Initiative. What do you think about that?
So I have people that I have a whole lot of respect for on both sides of this issue.
Hmm. I've
And
heard interesting takes on both sides, so I'm
both
interested.
sides. Generally speaking, when a question like this comes up, like I talk to the people who are doing the work. You know what I mean? So like if you want to know like what the potential outcome is going to be for something in a development process or changing, you go talk to the people who are working with who create the built environment, right?
Mhm.
And get their take on it. I am very much interested in I know there's other candidate forums and stuff, and maybe you guys would be interested in this, but I think that there needs to be a community conversation, like kind of not a debate, because I think people do. I think there's a lot of fatigue, at least for me. There's some fatigue.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, there's a
I
lot
don't
of.
need somebody reading off a note card to me. I don't
Yeah.
need pre-rehearsed thing. I want to like engage in dialogue and some back and forth where it's like in real time of like, okay, so defend your premise on this, and like because then maybe we can
Data,
yeah,
facts, data and
yeah, like
facts.
I mean, okay, short of like nobody has a crystal ball, but like
Mhm.
you're in a place we can certainly make educated guesses.
Mhm.
If this thing does in fact cause a moratorium, it would be really really bad for the town. As before I mentioned, like we are in a position right now where we rely on new taxable value or else we can't fund things, which we have to fix, which we can fix. Like, and all the things that are oriented that too, like, Gallatin Community College, that is
Mhm.
ramped up stuff. And um, as far as so the question of the ward thing, I hope that there's an opportunity to have kind of like a forum. I mean, because that's how I operate with things. It's like it's a conversation, right?
Mhm.
Like
It doesn't have to be so black and white. If
it
like
doesn't. It
just a
doesn't.
discussion would be nice, so that everybody kind of knows
What the
the
trade-offs are.
facts. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, okay, here's the risk and here's the trade-off. So you can
Mhm.
make your own value judgment on it. But like walking in eyes wide open about it. As far as like the water supply, I do. Um, so I work with landscaping,
Mhm.
Cashman Nursery, and I think all the efforts with like the drought tolerant plants and kind of moving away from turf grass is a good thing. The reality is like vegetative coverage is important for a couple different reasons. Stormwater infrastructure, you know what I mean? So preventing runoff, and kind of like the most streamlined way to do that was to install turf.
Mhm.
It was also an aesthetic that people really like, like
Yeah.
and if you got a dog, you got kiddos running and playing in it, right? It's a lot harder for them to run and play in like a rock bed,
Yeah.
or like cactus, not so much.
Right.
uh, but yeah, that like so when you look at the water conservation work, and the like the effort to limit turf grass and alternating watering, like it's because when you look at the data, like there's this insane spike in usage in the summer months, and it's because of turf. And more so than turf, there's like water usage, but then there's water that is wasted. So like
Huh.
a broken irrigation system, so it's leaking underground, or it's like pointed in the middle of the street or on the side. We've all seen them, right? Like
Huh?
that's like wasted water. So it's not like not even doing what its purpose is. So and I think there was some mixed messaging, and understandably so, that's like this, oh my gosh, like we're gonna be in a drought, so like everybody has to pay this extra money and we have to,
Yeah.
tear out all it's like, whoa, because this is a huge use of water. And if we stay on that trajectory, it can it's it doesn't make sense to do.
Yeah.
We can use water differently. Um, the numbers that have been published about water rights within the county, how much the city is using, how much will be available eventually. It looks like we don't, I mean, we should always tread lightly. And you should always respect a finite resource, right? Like,
Mhm.
and make smart decisions about that. Uh, but it does look like it's not this crisis. And,
Right.
and maybe I might regret this, but I'm just saying, like, I think what we've seen, like, on all different levels of government and just kind of socially, this phenomenon is that the crisis as the pitch. Like,
Yeah,
if you
it's fear
convince
based.
someone that there's a crisis of whatever it is
Yeah.
to try and get buy-in, and that's like a really toxic,
Yeah, it's
it's
fear.
a really
It's
toxic
fear
relationship.
all the
Like,
time. Fear on every subject known to
yeah,
mankind.
that's like, as
It's
opposed to like,
brought.
oh, like, can we do something about like the collective anxiety about these things? Like, okay, what does it look like? Like, what do our drought numbers say? What is our water supply? Because I think that's the problem. If you use crisis, whether it's for housing affordability, whether it's for water as a resource, whether it's for uh, police services, if you try and pitch it with a crisis and it's not, then you end up in a situation where people are like, well, wait, I'm still in a crisis.
Yeah.
I'm still responding to the crisis. So, you know what I mean? So then, like, so then turn around and say, like, oh, no, we're good. Like what? So you can't do that. So
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of wasted, just like human resource. That I just don't think it should be so
energy
hard.
suck.
Um,
Big energy suck. Yeah.
so my last tough question, I promise, is what is your view of the city commission's recent decision to adopt the pride flag as an official city flag? Do you oppose or support that action?
I was actually kind of surprised to see it kind of, and
Mhm.
even like kind of be fast tracked
Mhm.
like that.
A lot of public engagement and a lot of
Oh, I mean, I think there was like 700 some letters put in there.
yeah.
Like, personally, you know, my dad's one of seven. So like I have like 20 odd like cousins and stuff, and I have a sister and a brother, and like big, big family, like Eastern European, like Catholic, just lots of, and there's a lot of different opinions in there.
Yeah.
And one thing that we have had to contend with was this like the culture wars, right? And like the divisiveness of that, and how it can wreck relationships. It becomes bigger than people.
Oh, absolutely right.
And it just, like, there's a lot of, like, I understand that. Like, I'm not without compassion. I can understand why a group of constituents, right, like that the state legislature took a swing
Mhm.
and it landed, right? And that sucks to feel. Like, could you have to put some of yourself in someone else's shoes. Like, that would suck. I probably shouldn't say that, but I think
That's okay.
yeah.
I know. I'm shocked I
I
haven't
mean,
like
like,
dropped
if
a
it
bad
was,
word
like, I
yet.
think about like Commissioner Bodie, and that she's like you know, she's really showing up for that voter
Mhm.
base, that, like, maybe what that could have looked like, instead of, to Commissioner Fisher's point of this kind of divisiveness and taking the bait of that and running with it, that, like, I mean, I could imagine, like, getting like a three-piece rainbow suit and wearing that to every meeting, like, because you show up for your people, right? Like, and but I do think we have to have a community conversation about, like, what does it mean to be seen, and what does it mean to feel safe,
Yes.
right? And for me, it's like, okay, that does mean, like, taking care of everything so it's running really smoothly, so we have the extra bandwidth
Mhm.
for things like sponsoring security for events, like, it it just like, I don't know. I think there is a bit of this fatigue though with like this sort of like this culture where like people really just want, I mean, that I'm people are gonna fall on either side of this. Um, if it were like that was something just kind of like from a democratic thing too, it feels a little authoritarian to like something like a flag, right? Is like to put like a top down giving a community a flag
Yeah.
as opposed to like a bottom up or like a democratic or like, I don't, for something like a flag, I that for me would have to be a much more like community grassroots sort of effort to do.
So do you agree or disagree? I'm gonna with their
Agree or
decision,
disagree with the
with their
adoption?
decision, with what they decided for the flag.
I would disagree with it. I mean,
You're allowed.
I'm always willing to be convinced otherwise too, right? Like because I have my lens and thing,
Mhm.
but because I'll share this with you. So while that meeting was going on, so I didn't attend. Um, I had it,
You
streaming
didn't
in the
have
background.
7 hours laying around.
So what I was actually doing was sitting here. So Montana Department of Transportation just did this project at 7th and Peach, which for many reasons has lots of issues. I'll just say like you can't make this stuff up. They're literally using like funds from like earmarked from the Clean Air Act for air quality improvement to like purchase this right of way that had all these mature trees to cut them all down to make another
Oh,
traffic lane.
oh,
I was like, it reads like an Onion article,
oh!
and
I forgot.
like, but there was a lot of people like there was Bozeman Tree Coalition, there was
Oh
neighborhood
yeah,
groups and stuff, and in the background and like some city staff, we were really trying to see how we could get a change order to get a better design because like that is a 15-mile-per-hour school zone. And the goal is to get people to slow down. We invite children to ride their bike from Weir Elementary down to the BMX park. And I'm going on this just to say that like that's what I was working on that night,
yeah,
you know, and it's that's just like um I
yeah.
know
It's not to
people say it's not
discount.
just performative, and
Yeah,
I'm willing to, but I also am like, there is a part of me too. I think we have to have a conversation like cultural resets on words like safety,
yeah,
right? Like, what does it mean to feel safe? What does it mean to feel seen? And, but yeah,
yeah.
that,
There's
it's just like the city, I don't think it is the role of local government to do a top down adoption like that.
mhm,
I mean, you have any any issue where you get 700 some public comments, right? And they're falling on both sides like that. That should probably be a signal to pump the brakes.
yeah. I think so, and I think that's where the
That's just
frustration
good
lies.
governance, like
Yeah, it's not anything against people for being gay at all. It's
yeah.
about local government and the decisions that they're making on behalf of an entire community, and perhaps that word accountability comes to mind, where um, they're supposed to protect and serve the whole community. So anyway, that's
I get the knee jerk to like
yeah. Well,
to
yeah.
like respond. I get that, but like we also, I mean, and that's one of the things that I bring to leadership is that like I kind of like you have to stay the course, steady hand, keep
Hmm.
your eyes wide open, level headed about these things. I mean, we halted the UDC thing for a fraction of the public outcry,
Hmm.
like dead in the tracks, right? Like
Yeah,
UDC,
yeah,
like hard stop. So I just feel like with that kind of outpouring of it warranted um, more than just a kind of quick vote like that.
yeah. So that's it for the tough questions.
Oh, good.
How? Yeah, we've talked
They
for a while.
weren't
It's been
too
really
bad,
nice
right?
to talk to you. It's easy to talk to you. So how can people learn more about your campaign? Do you have a website or social
So
media?
it's almost done. It's just
Okay,
so I hope.
awesome.
I mean, I think by the time when are you guys airing these?
We're still doing them, and I'm not exactly sure what
Okay,
the plan is. I think they'll probably all go up at the same time. I'm not exactly sure,
okay, because
but
yeah,
you can
it
always
should be
reach
done
out.
by Saturday night. Well, it's supposed to be done. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so it'll be Talago for Bozeman.com. And you
Okay.
can do number 4 or, FOR4, but Talago, Talago, for Bozeman.com.
Okay.
And so, it's got some summary stuff in there, but then you could also deep dive too for people who like to read a lot.
Yeah.
Understand that not everybody has that much time. The other thing I'm doing, and it should be hosted on there, is I'm going to just record the first one of like this. I think it's more like a podcast, but it's kind of more.
Oh, very cool.
I don't know how to plug it into like the Spotify stuff or anything like that yet, but um, it came out of this idea. I have great conversations with people all the time that are super thoughtful, and this idea just came home. It's like it's a very digestible format.
Uh-huh.
You could put your earbuds in and do your dishes or meal prepping or whatever, and just to have like all these really thoughtful conversations, like, oh gosh, like I wish there other people could be tuning into this, right?
Uh-huh.
And like, and challenging it, or and so it's something I hope to continue doing. But so I think that will be the repository for those for now, until I learn more about how all that works.
No, that's smart. And we're inviting everybody to share any updates with us, and we'll make sure that we update our site so that everybody can go down their rabbit holes and
Yeah.
see what you're doing and listen to what you're doing. I think that's a really great idea, the podcast thing. So I'll just ask finally, just in a few words, why do you think the people of Bozeman should vote for Emily Talago?
Oh my gosh, I'm just blanking.
No, you're good. You're
I'm
good.
so sorry.
I mean,
Can
you
we
pretty
edit
much
that
just
out? I was
told me
just
for
like,
an hour.
sorry, my phone just dinged and it dings on the computer too. And so now there is a text message over top of my
Oh
picture.
no, you're totally good. Take your time.
Oh boy. Anyway, I would be honored to have people's vote in November. I've been showing up for over a decade.
Uh-huh.
I've been doing the work. I believe in, getting to some common sense solutions
Uh-huh.
for our most pressing problems. Um, I don't think those solutions are going to happen and come from City Hall alone. And I have a track record of building those relationships, and solving problems and getting results
Uh-huh.
that you can quantify, you can measure, to help guide where the city is headed from here. So, but yeah, and I would say it's an open invitation to everybody. My contact information will be on my website. I don't know if you guys will have a place that you can post that, but literally, I mean,
Yeah.
people can call, drop an email, because that's the other piece is like, uh, listening doesn't stop if you get elected. And so that two-way communication that I've worked really hard to like rebuild,
Yeah.
in neighborhoods and different stakeholders, like that needs to continue. And so people do need to reach out. And I am always really curious too, like, what do people think? It's how I approach things. Like, and if you don't know, or if there's like like a inkling that you're not, you got to go talk to people. You got
Yeah.
to ask. So
Yeah. And you're right. The moment you're elected is when the listening really starts. So I think that's a perfect way to end the interview. And I just want to thank you so
yeah,
much for your time tonight. And please
thank
do
you.
send us updates. We're going to make sure that everybody's information is updated on our site, with contact information, websites, socials, podcasts, anything that you guys are
Cool.
doing. And we just wish everybody the best, no matter what they feel about what. And we'll see how it goes. And I hope you'll update us as we go.
I
Thank you.
do. Absolutely. No, I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Got it.